Welcome to our listeners today on the Leora Workplace Wellbeing app. I am truly excited about today's guest, Heather Mitchell, who is a financial coach. And I think with everyone that I've been speaking to, financial pressures and just expenses, this is something that's always plaguing our mind. There's no better time to bring this subject to light and have a discussion on how do we get more control over our financials. And so I'm very, very excited to welcome you, Heather. How are you today?
I'm very good, Esha. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
What are you seeing post-COVID around the stress that's coming from financials with clients that you're working with?
Yes, I mean, they are very, very scared and pressurized because obviously there's inflation, there's the interest rates rising. So there's a lot of pressure around all of that. So yeah, there's a lot of stress and people thinking, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to make ends meet? And their mortgages are going up through the roof. So I'm seeing that all the time.
Mm-hmm. And you demystify this, right? You really demystify the process of having much more control over financials. Do you do this typically more for women, or is it just for everyone who is maybe not as in tune or astute financially?
Yes, I originally intended to do it for women because I noticed a lot of women, my friends and all the people around me who the mums and so on, had a lot of pressure. But I'm finding that I've got a lot of other men clients actually. So it's becoming more balanced actually.
Let's go through the process. I know that when we think about financial understanding and having a little bit more control over our financials, it really starts with a mindset shift right at the beginning, doesn't it?
Exactly. And this is what I discovered when I decided to do this, what I do. The first thing that I was going to do was to teach people how to invest and how to build my money, because that's something that I've been doing my entire life. I was just lucky my dad taught me when I was like 6 years old. So I've been doing it my entire life. And I noticed that people weren't doing it. And that was my intention, was to teach them how to actually maximize their income. But then I quickly realized that we had to take a step back. And if we just started with that, and didn't get all the mindset piece right first, then we'd be missing a trick, because so many people, they get money in and the money goes straight out again. And it's that kind of sand running between their fingers. And it's just like, no, we need to actually get all the blocks, all the traumas, all the things that we've actually grown up with and we've been taking and carrying around with us every single day. That's what's blocking us. That's what's causing us that whenever we have a decision that we want to make, that trauma is triggered. That thing that happened however long ago is triggered right on that moment of decision making. And we can't think straight. It's just a block. There's just craziness that you can't actually make any decisions. And so it's all about building a better relationship with money. It's having a new relationship with money where there's a calmness, there's a reset, that you don't actually have those traumas anymore. So you can make decisions more happily.
You and I understand this and appreciate this, but a lot of people may not realize that actually it is this, there's a psychology around this, like you've just mentioned. I fundamentally believe, like so many other things where we're learning a new skill or getting a better understanding or expertise in a certain area, some of our first blockers are just our mindset. I want to delve deeper into this because I think this is like such a fundamental piece that we've got to get right before we then talk about those strategies and techniques, which I think once we've got our psychology right, all of the other stuff just falls, because we've got the capability, we've got the intellect, we've got the capacity to then learn that. Why does this happen? Where is this coming from? Why do so many people, so many of us, grow up with issues around money or limiting beliefs around money? What are some of these beliefs that we're growing up with?
Well, the first thing is, why did it happen? And I can tell you very easily. It's because we weren't taught it at school. You know, if you just think about this, science, there's maths, there's geography, there's history. There should be a subject called money. If we were to have that subject our entire lives, all the way through school, what was that, 13 years or so, we wouldn't be in half the trouble we are in, but it's just because people are not taught it. So they're going out into the world and just making all these errors fundamentally. So that's that's the first point, is that we weren't taught about it. The second thing is we're just grown up, and it's just almost that because of that whole education thing, we're just buffeted around. So it just depends on what happened at home. So if you had parents that were very savvy with money and taught you and things, that's great. But unfortunately, that's the minority of people. Most people, their parents don't know what they're doing, and that they don't have the knowledge to pass on to their children. And some people do have the knowledge, but don't pass it on because of the taboo subject. There's so many issues around money. It's complex.
Yeah. And then the other side of that is that those conversations at home as we're growing up as children, if there's a constant stress around money, if there's constant conversations where maybe one parent has complete stress and control over the money or the decision making around it and the other doesn't, I think that also then has this flow-on effect on us as adults where we may or may not assume responsibility for it. Or we may become completely dependent on our partner for all of the decision making. So it's a rebalancing and really understanding, coming to an awareness of where you are right now with that, those beliefs that you may have, that then you're pretty much like practically living in your day-to-day life. So great. So let's say we come to an understanding, we come to an awareness, and we can see some of these belief systems that are playing out in our life. Is there a journey? Is there a process that you take people through doing that, and then simultaneously bring in the skills and the level of, I guess, the theoretical aspects of managing money?
Yes, I do. And I suppose I take a step back and just to kind of give a sense of where I'm coming from in terms of it's very holistic.
Mm-hmm.
So to even starting with, we think of money in terms of well-being. So that's the kind of starting point. So money is dead center in our well-being lives, because obviously this is our modern age and money is very important. And we built our model like 10 years ago before anyone was saying this, because it feels at first glance very separate. You know, you've got your physical well-being and your mindset and all the things that come into our well-being, but obviously money is so important in that. There is a process. So we come and heal those traumas, or find out what they are to start with. So we find out what the traumas are, and then we start to heal those traumas, and there's lots of different processes that we do to really get to the bottom of those and really come to terms with them, and almost build a brand new persona of someone who does have all the things that you want. It's almost like a rebirthing, which is a really powerful process. And then we get very practical. We look at spreadsheets, we get the numbers out. I've got a data analytics background, so we look through, and once everything is down on paper, all the spending and all the income, all the outgoings, we have it all down on one sheet. It's very easy to strategically see what to do next. So there's that piece. Then we look at spending with joy and thinking about the spend patterns and how there's so much kind of waste and leakages that happen with our spending that we just don't even realize that so much money can be saved just by going through that, because, you know, without even really noticing it, because there's a lot of, as I said, leakages.
Can you give an example of that? What are some leakages? What is some examples of where we're just where money's flowing out and we can control it?
For example, subscriptions. How many times do we subscribe to magazines or Netflix or so many things? You know, they make it very convenient for us to do it on autopilot. It's just coming out of our account, you know, don't have to worry about it. But often we don't even use the services anymore, so that it's coming out of our account anyway. And it's just complete waste. So again, just doing that review and making sure, because suddenly it becomes very apparent to us. I mean, there's some extreme examples as well. I mean, there was one example I had of a client who, it was really quite sad, but when she was growing up, her dad only complimented her and her mum when they looked pretty. So she developed over time this obsession with buying clothes. And so, you know, it was amazing because we looked at her numbers and suddenly it was just like, whoa, thousands and thousands of dollars a month spent on clothes. it was like it became a real issue with her, but she didn't even realize it was an issue. But obviously now it was done on paper, it was very clear and very apparent what to do. And so, you know, suddenly she had so much extra money, which is now invested in property. But also, you know, she realized she could just go shopping in her own wardrobe. There was just so much she didn't even know was there. So, you know, that's another form of extreme leakage. But you can see that when you actually have it down on paper, you can kind of see quite easily what the patterns are. And it's funny because you could actually, you know, see someone's personality through their spend. You know, you can tell me what you like, but when you actually look at the numbers, suddenly I can tell you what kind of person you are, what kind of interest you like, and you're putting money where your mouth is. So
I'm just laughing because my husband says that to me a lot. Why don't you go shopping in your own wardrobe? And it's not because I shop a lot, but sometimes we keep clothes we just keep clothes. We keep them, right? Like, it's not like if you've got some really nice pieces, you're not going to throw them out. And so it's just, yeah, it's true. And I also think actually what you mentioned about writing it down, just that in itself, how many people actually write down their expenses and their outgoings versus their income on a spreadsheet? I mean, outside of people that I know that are in business, I don't think I know anyone who's doing that for their personal accounts. The other thing is, just on that, there are actually some great apps now, like some of the CBA apps, as an example, that make it very easy. So when you log onto the app, you can actually see it on a home screen of like your ins and outs and how to manage that. So I think there are probably other apps as well, not just banking apps, that make it super simple, right? Are there any that you promote?
I've used a couple in my time. I mean, some of them are very complicated. That's what I find. They sort of almost over-engineer it, the ones that I've seen. So it's almost like you don't need to overcomplicate it. Really, just, you know, jotting down. I mean, I encourage my clients, just even for a week, to just write down everything you spend. Just that, bringing it into your conscious reality. Because I often find that as soon as they do that, then they kind of question, oh, should I actually really, you know, I've actually got to write this down. So it suddenly becomes more real. Tapping, you know, it used to be just a credit card as app. Now it's a tap. So it doesn't even feel like spending. It's so easy that, you know, you just suddenly, it's like a shock when you look at the credit card bill at the end of the week, at the end of the month. It's like, oh my goodness, you know, where did all this come from?
Absolutely.
So having something physical where you have to stop and think and write down just puts a pause between you and the purchase, and suddenly that is actually quite powerful to actually really get people to reevaluate whether they actually want it.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that, because it's almost also taken the joy out of shopping. Like, I think about my shopping habits and how they've evolved over the last decade. Now, if I want something from Amazon because I need it because of convenience within 24 hours, it's like one click. It's just seamless. The process is seamless. And it's almost also actually taken out the whole joy and the experience of looking at different things, making a conscious decision. It's just, yeah, really easy. But then that has a downside, which is we are probably shopping excessively. I also think your idea about just doing it even for a week, how easy is that if you just, rather than thinking about it like from a 3-month or what have I done in the last 6 months, giving yourself that visibility of a week spending, something like, I'm sure we spend a lot of money on coffee as an example. And if you're drinking coffee out twice a day, how easily does something like that add up? And then you can make some decisions around, okay, might have my morning coffee out, but then if I'm going to have something in the afternoon, how about I just make it in the office kitchen or at home? And that could halve the spend on something that, you know, we may not think so much about.
That's it. And just seeing where your weaknesses are. I mean, it might be that your weakness is, you know, getting those emails in with all those shopping ideas on there, you know, or it might be that you're, you know, you just love clothes shopping or whatever. So it's just trying to see where it is that you're particularly prone to shop, and again, that's through the analysis. And then you can kind of like cancel those subscriptions or not go into those shops and do it deliberately. I think it's all once you bring it to your conscious attention, you can make deliberate decisions rather than it just being on autopilot. And, that's very dangerous when you just buy it because you've always have. You don't really think about it too much. And then years go by and you're still buying it.
And then what's after that process? So then we're bringing this into our awareness. We're going to check in with our expenses. It's really hard to break habits. How do you actually break the cycle?
So the way I approach it is that I reframe the whole thing. So instead of thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I'm not going to buy this, so I'm depriving myself, what I actually teach people is actually that they are rewarding their future selves. So with that reframe, it changes everything, because on the converse to that, if you buy it, you're robbing your future self and all of the things that you could have had. And so, I always say, do you want one of it now, or do you want 10 of it down the line? And that's how Warren Buffett, the famous investor, thinks. He doesn't want to buy an expensive car because he thinks, well, why would I spend $1 million on a car? Because he knows that extrapolated forward, that money can earn itself, and many times over. So thinking in terms of those, it's almost like thinking a bit more like an investor, a bit more sort of forward thinking, and kind of, just realizing that power of compound growth is attainable to all of us. Once you've got it on your side, suddenly it's extremely powerful. So not spending suddenly becomes a triumph and exciting and really, really good. So I have people write down when they didn't spend something, when they were going to, and they changed their minds. And so that's a win. That's money back in your own purse. So that's really quite a positive way of looking at it.
This reminds me of the quote, the pain of discipline is far less than the pain of regret, right? It's like the discipline is actually not that bad. But then 6 months down, if we're not changing some of these habits, there's a lot of regret that goes into it.
That's it. There's that remorse, and once it's gone, it's gone. It's you have to get it all back again. Whereas if you can hold on to it, and the way I look at it is, once you've saved that money, if you're going to spend it anyway, the best thing you can do with it is to buy an asset with it, because then you're keeping the money, you're keeping the asset, and then that asset then starts to pay you, and then it's a virtuous circle. So suddenly, rather than it just going and it's gone, now it's actually something that is going to be one of your money taps. And I encourage people to build as many money taps as possible that are just working in the background, so you don't have to work so hard, because you've got all these money taps, all these little elves that are just working and providing for you, and then that enables you to work for joy and not necessity.
It's such a great segue. I was actually going to ask you that one, when we're looking at the whole, our situation, our financial situation, one element is our ability to control our expenditure. But then the other thing is that we want to keep increasing our wealth over time. We want to keep increasing our income with the very fact that there's inflation and CPI increases. So the cost of goods increase. What are some things that people, you encourage people to look at in terms of assets? I think the obvious thing for most people is that they can improve their skills and then get promoted and continue growing in their businesses or with their employers. But outside of that, what are some of the other assets that we could be thinking about?
Yes, I mean, obviously that is a first port of call, and obviously that's a skill set, and you always want to invest in yourself. The downside of just doing that is that you're putting all your eggs in one basket. It's just like, what if the job goes, what if you can't work? So it's just like relying on that exclusively is a dangerous strategy, because a lot of people think investing is dangerous, but then just doing your work only is also dangerous for a different reason. So what do we do? So there's lots of different things, and the way I look at investing is it's quite exciting really, because I'm quite a futurist. So I quite like looking at the future and kind of thinking, well, what will we do in the future? What will life be like? Will we be in flying cars and all of these things? You can kind of let your imagination run wild. And then when you get this kind of viewpoint of where you think it's going to go, then the next question is, well, which companies are making that future? Because all of it will be provided by an organization, and many of them you can actually invest in on the stock market. So it's a question of, oh great, okay, looking at those and thinking about the different sectors, because there'll be certain sectors that are particularly good at that kind of thing, and then so they're the fast flowing streams, if you like. So then you look at and just think, well, which companies are the best companies in those fast flowing streams? So that's where we go. So we can invest in individual companies. Of course, that's kind of a bit far down the line, because initially you can just invest in the whole sector. So then you take out the risk of that one company not doing very well by investing in the whole bucket. So if any of the companies do well, then it goes up. And so basically what I love about investing is you're holding on to the coattails of others. There's these amazing people that have built businesses, they've gone through the marketing, that have got all these customers, and they're coming back for more and more and more, like amazing, amazing companies. And somehow as investors, we get to enjoy all of those benefits and get all of the excitement without doing a fraction of the work that they're doing to actually generate it. So it's a really wonderful thing, I think. And I always look at investing the way other people look at football teams, so if one of my companies does well, I kind of get quite excited, and oh, they've done this, oh, that's nice, they've done something. And so it's just a different way of looking at it, because a lot of people think of money as kind of dull and they'd rather stick pins in their eyes, but there is a fun thing. And I think the industry kind of makes it feel very dry and very technical, and they just like to sort of make it sort of very big gravitas, but actually it's actually quite fun. And there's lots of different things. And the other thing that I'm really quite excited about at the moment, because I'm really particularly into tech, I mean there's lots of other things as well, but there are like exciting things like AI bots, which I'm really getting into at the moment, which is really quite amazing. I mean, these AI bots have been around for years, because in Wall Street they've been using them since the 80s. But for the common man, these are only just coming out. So it's really cutting edge. But literally, there's bots that you can go into the money markets and trade Forex or gold or other things. And it's coming in, it's doing it completely without your control. So it's literally in the background. It's as close to passive income as you can get, because literally you just set it and then forget it pretty much. I mean, obviously it's worth looking at it to make sure what it's doing, but it's very exciting, because it just means there's another thing to invest in. And obviously there's crypto as well, which is a whole nother area. So when there's new technology that comes out like that, I get quite excited, because it just means that there's another way to diversify. And the way I look at investing is it's always important to diversify, because that protects you. If one doesn't do very well, then all the others are doing fine. So it protects you at night. I always think, my barometer is, can you sleep well at night? And that's how I kind of look at things, just making sure that you're doing things. I said about holistic at the beginning, about how we are a holistic organization, about well-being, but the way that I invest is also holistic, making sure that we're covered on all eventualities.
Might I add as well, though, that it's something that you don't want to do without having a lot of knowledge and understanding and being very confident in. So if crypto or Bitcoin or AI or any of these technologies or businesses are too complex, then best to lean on expertise, maybe even a friend who's doing really well in trading and understands these businesses and emerging tech, or an expert like yourself, but just someone who has shown a level of success and strong understanding. Because of course we don't want to play with our money. It is one of the greatest sort of sources of stress in our life, but we want to turn that around to something that we actually feel confident about managing, feel confident about our decision making, and then of course continue to grow our wealth over the years.
Definitely, yeah. Unfortunately, it is a bit like the Wild West out there. There's lots of opportunities to be had, just like a gold rush. But unfortunately, there are lots of sharks out there, lots of things that aren't as you might had hoped. And unfortunately, in like my line of business, I see a lot of people that have been scammed, a lot of people that inadvertently put their trust in people, and they say, yes, we're fine. One of the things that they do is they get them to go onto a crypto platform that doesn't have a wallet. And then they say, here, this is you just put it in this wallet, and then they give them the address, and so they think that that's their own wallet, but actually it's the person's wallet. So they're literally right at the very start, they give their money to someone else, but they say it's theirs. So they say, well, when can I see the rate rise? And that, you know, they've gone, they're out of there. And I keep seeing that happening. It's really, really sad. And we're talking like sometimes life-saving. So it's really, really tragic, actually.
No, thank you for sharing that. As we come to the end of this dialogue, is there something that you want to add, or is there something that you want to share as an insight that we haven't already covered?
Sure. I mean, I just want to just encourage people that we are, you know, very abundant. There is a lot of abundance out there. And I think that it's very easy to think small, but actually there's lots of different things that we can do. We can, you know, definitely work on ourselves. That really does help. But then there's lots of opportunities out there. It's not, you know, I think the media likes to say that it's just, oh, everything's terrible. You know, is there a recession, you know, all of this kind of stuff. It makes you think that everything's the sky's falling in. But actually, even in these recessions and depressions, in fact, more millionaires were minted during the 1929, the 1930s than any other time. So lots of opportunities arise in these times. And so I think it's just shifting that viewpoint and actually finding the opportunities in all of that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, I found this quite an insightful conversation. And I think for people that are currently stressing out about money, I hope that they found value in listening to this. It really does start with a mindset and a psychology shift and an internal awareness, getting comfortable with it, and then preparing yourself, getting an even deeper insight, taking a deep dive into your financials, writing them down, having them front of mind as opposed to something that we react to, but actually proactively working that through our planning. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it, Heather. And I hope that our listeners reach out to you directly if they want more information.
Yeah, no, I'd love that. I'm here to serve. So if anyone wants to get in contact, please do.
We'll leave your contact details in the caption. Thanks, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you.